Are you aware that the Biden administration is implementing new asylum processing policies? If not, stick until the end because might help you plan how and when you'll be able to seek asylum in the United States. My name is Andre Major. I'm an immigration attorney and an immigrant myself. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about the 2022 proposed rules under asylum that the Biden administration is processing. But before I begin, please click the subscribe button below and hit the notification bell to get updates on all our weekly and regular immigration content. Also, feel free to leave any comments below about this topic or any future topics you might want to hear us talk about. So let's get to it. The proposed new rules on the asylum system under the Biden administration are a game changer for our system. It aims to follow a straightforward manner to improve the effectiveness and timeliness of border case management. The Department of Homeland Security thinks that these reforms will help to clear the mountain of case backlogs and make seeking protection or humanitarian relief more accessible to people. Today, someone who presents themselves at the border is going into removal procedures, even if they want to file for asylum. These rules are going to change that. So, policy change number one, asylum officers would now resolve two other protection claims against deportation. Prior to this change, asylum officers could only decide, you guessed it, asylum cases. But there are other asylum-like cases that an immigration judge can consider. Those include withholding of removal and relief under the Convention Against Torture. The new policy would allow an asylum officer to consider those two case types as well. The straightforward cases, meaning the obvious cases that almost everybody can agree those should be approved, will be approved relatively quickly. Theoretically, this means less cases go into the immigration courts, less cases languishing, because an asylum case in immigration court lasts 4 to 4.5 years, whereas this process would take months. Policy change number two, granting of asylum application may happen with months rather than years. Now, this is a big change. This change, well, before we get to the change, you need to first know what a credible fear interview is. When you present yourself at the border or you're apprehended by Customs and Border Patrol or ICE trying to enter the country, and you express either fear of persecution if you return to your home country or torture, you are going to have what's called a credible fear interview. At this interview, an asylum officer is going to decide if there is a significant possibility that you've been persecuted in your home country or you have good reason to believe you will be persecuted if you return, and that persecution is because of your race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or political opinion. So, credible fear interview is to say, not that you definitely have a case for asylum, but you at least can articulate a basis that could result in asylum. If you just say, hey, I'm going to come to this country because I can't support my family, I couldn't find a job, that isn't going to cut it. But I was in a political party. My government sent the police to threaten me because my party was against the ruling party. And you have other examples of the persecution, that could do it. Now, under the new rule, which was announced in March, asylum seekers who pass a credible fear interview will no longer be sent directly to immigration court, where they are required to file an asylum application in English to seek asylum in front of a judge. Instead, they will be sent for a second interview known as an asylum merits interview, where their credible fear interview is going to count as an asylum application. So process was, come to the United States, you have to file an asylum application within a year, you're going to see a judge eventually, and then you're going to have a trial in front of the judge. Now you come in, you have a credible fear interview. If approved, that is your application, and you are going to have a asylum merits interview. Now, that asylum merits interview is supposed to occur 21 to 45 days after the credible fear interview. If the asylum officer approves the case, person's case is over, and you've achieved in months what would otherwise have taken years in the court system. When you are put under the asylum merits interview, the asylum officer will consider all of the factors in your situation, including your positive credible fear interview, to determine if you are eligible for asylum, withholding of removal, or protection under the rules of Convention Against Torture, CAT. The asylum merits interview will take place allegedly in a non-adversarial setting. That is not always the case, but that's what's supposed to happen, with the asylum officer verifying your identity as well as the identities of your spouse or children, if applicable. They will also inquire about your basic biographical information and the grounds on which you are seeking asylum, withholding, or Convention Against Torture protection. Basically, when I say grounds, I mean what's the basis for the relief. Once granted, you're now an asylee. Well, if you're granted asylum. Withholding of removal, you're going to ultimately get an order of removal but get to stay with employment authorization. And Convention Against Torture, same thing, but you may or may not get employment authorization depending on the officer or the judge's decision. If the asylum officer denies your asylum, your case is going to be sent to immigration court for an expedited process, which again is supposed to resolve the case in 2 to 4 months maximum. And that's all for today's video. If you're seeking asylum, it would be beneficial that you seek competent counsel. I recommend you give us a call, or you go on the website and you book an appointment at andresmeckerlaw.com, as there may be unanticipated changes. But even if these changes all go forward, we're talking in months, you're going to have a trial date. Whereas in the past, it would have taken years to get proof and documents and translations. And now you're not going to have a whole lot of time to do it. So don't wait. If you find this video informative, please share it with your friends and family who are interested in seeking asylum. If you have any ideas for future videos, feel free to let us know below, and maybe you'll see your subject in a video coming soon. Until next time, stay healthy, be safe.